What's up, guys? Welcome back to the LTL Podcast. I am Rob, and I am solo today. And today we are wrapping up the third round, the semifinals, I suppose, as you can dub them. And let's just get this out of the way because this is going to be painful for me personally. Let's wrap up the Lightning and Islanders series. The Tampa Bay Lightning prevailing in 7 games, a 1-0 win in Game 7. Absolutely crushing, heartbreaking for me personally. Still kind of a little in shock over just the way that it ended, but this was an interesting series, and I think it really proved that the Lightning are mortal, and they aren't, even despite being over the salary cap. And yes, Tampa Bay Lightning fans, don't come at me twisted. Your team is over the cap. There is no way to defend that. They are, in fact, over what the salary cap would be. The only team left in the Final Four that was over the cap. The Islanders were not over the cap, as many people were saying, because when you factored in LTIR contracts, the Islanders would be cap compliant during the regular season. The Tampa Bay Lightning would not, with the roster that they were icing. So don't come at me with that BS and that nonsense, okay? There's no defending what the Tampa Bay Lightning did. It is essentially cap circumvention, and I'm not hearing any arguments otherwise because there is no argument against it. However, that being said, the nonsense bullshit that the Lightning front office have pulled this season aside, there's a reason that this team is going back to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that the reason is that they are legit. They are good. I mean, up and down the roster from top to bottom, they have game breakers and elite players at every single position. I mean, obviously, the forward core is absolutely loaded. The defense, you have Victor Hedman and Mikhail Sergachev, along with role players like Ryan McDonough, Eric Chernak, Luke Shen, and the rest. And if you manage to get past all of those players, you get to Andrei Vasilevsky, arguably the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. So, I don't think I need to tell you why this Lightning team is good, but they're good. They're no joke. So, the series did prove, though, that the Lightning are, in fact, mortal. They are a beatable hockey club, even when they are nearly $18 million over the salary cap. And, the way to do that is to keep the scoring low. I mean, the Islanders this series, outside of that Game 5 hiccup, didn't allow more than 2 goals, except for Game 2 was a 4-2 win, and that was it. I mean, the Lightning won their games 4-2, 2-1, 8-0, and then 1-0. I mean, the Islanders didn't really give them a whole lot. The downfall of the Islanders ultimately was they could not score goals, and a 2-1 loss in Game 3, a 1-0 loss in Game 7, a 4-2 loss in Game 2, ultimately is what doomed them. The inability to put the puck in the back of the net. And we knew that the Islanders going into this series were not an offensive stalwart by any stretch of the imagination, but this kind of just proves that, bottom line, end of the day, you can play the best defense in the entire league, but you need to score goals in order to win, to complement that defense. The Islanders only let in 1 goal in Game 7. Unfortunately, that's the only goal that the Lightning needed. And the Islanders were unable to produce any offense really at all. They only put up 18 shots on goal. So, the Islanders look for this offseason. It's going to be a rough one for them. People are going to be gone. People have to go. With the cap situation that the New York Islanders have right now, the expansion draft is an opportunity to kind of open the door for some salary to leave via expansion draft. But that's not going to be enough. There's going to have to be trades made this offseason for the Islanders, and it's going to come at the cost of some names. I mean, names that have been thrown around on the trade market have been Josh Bailey, Jordan Eberle, Nick Leddy. Some people are saying that the Islanders might have to package Kiefer Bellows in with one of the bad contracts, maybe the Leo Komarov contract, or either the Andrew Ladd or the Thomas Hickey contract to a team that's accepting salary. It's going to cost some assets to get this team back together next season. But on the flip side of that, for the first time in really quite a while, we've seen the youth prove that they can play with the big guns. I mean, Oliver Wahlstrom had a fantastic season. Noah Dobson was an entirely new, different player this year than he was last year. And I think playing consistently and playing alongside a steady hand as reliable as Andy Green really settled him in, and he looks like a new player. Kiefer Bellows shined in the limited action that he saw this year. If he's still on the roster going into next year, I would imagine that he gets an elevated role. I would imagine Wahlstrom gets an elevated role. And obviously, Ilya Sorokin, and one of the best, younger goalies. He's not super young. He's going to be 26, but, one of the best younger goalies in the NHL. So, the youth for the Islanders is there, and it brings with it the promise of potential sustainability for this competitive window that they have. Even the older parts of this team, like Josh Bailey and Anders Lee, they're only 31 and 30, so they still have, maybe a year or two at the peak of their athletic ability before the regression comes in. So, the window isn't super wide open. The Islanders really need to push and make a big push for a Stanley Cup appearance or actually bottom line, make a big push for a Stanley Cup championship, I would say within the next 5 years at most. Unless, of course, we see Lou Lamoriello manage to pull some more magic out of a hat and find some diamonds in the rough with some of these draft picks. But, I would say that really the peak competitive window of this team is 3 years, with those extra 2 years at the end, maybe for a San Jose Sharks type run when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, where you just get that team clicking at the right time. But there's going to be moves made this offseason, on Long Island. It's going to happen. I mean, the guys are going to have to be shipped out, and hopefully my fingers are crossed that we manage to keep Kiefer Bellows this offseason. But if we have to package him with some players in order to dump salary to stay compliant, that's an option that is open at this point. But what I'm hoping is, we may need to expose Nick Leddy to the expansion draft. He leaves and Noah Dobson takes his place as the premier offensive puck-moving defenseman. We would need another, I would say, realistically speaking, we would want to replace Nick Leddy with another offensively minded defenseman, perhaps at a lower salary cap hit. Somebody in the likes of Tyson Barrie, who might be a UFA come free agency, is an option. And then, Oliver Wahlstrom and Kiefer Bellows get elevated roles. Perhaps we manage to trade away either, Josh Bailey might have to go because he doesn't have any trade protection. Leo Komarov has a modified no-trade clause. So, we would have to pay a team to take on his deal. But there's going to be a name that's not going to be playing for this team next year, and it's going to be a significant name, kind of like how Devon Toews was last year. So, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, just disappointing. But And I think this season you would classify as a success for the Islanders, a disappointing success, to make it all the way back to the Stanley Cup semifinals and go all the way to a Game 7 and lose by 1 goal. It's hard right now to see that as anything successful, but I think it proves to the NHL that the Islanders are legit. Last year wasn't a fluke, and you earned the respect of the league by getting back here. Taking out some pretty hefty opponents, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Boston Bruins along the way. They weren't handed any series at any point. So I would say it's not the end they wanted. Obviously, last year they said that just making it to the semifinals isn't enough. The goal is a Stanley Cup. But you run into a team that's as good as the Lightning are. Shady business practices aside, you run into a team that's as good as the Lightning are, and you just fall a little bit short. So it's definitely a rough series. It's one that's gonna suck for a long time. It's really gonna sting for a while, especially considering that some of the powerhouses in the West didn't make it as far, namely the Colorado Avalanche. So it's rough, but the Tampa Bay Lightning, at the end of the day, they I won't really say they were the better team, because I think it was pretty fairly evenly matched through 7 games. But at the bottom line, end of the day, Tampa Bay Lightning scored when they needed to, and the Islanders couldn't. So congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning for the semifinals victory, off to their 2nd straight Stanley Cup Finals. Just hopefully it doesn't take them resorting to such underhanded and morally corrupt and bankrupt ways to achieve this kind of success next time. But anyway, that's being, that aside. That's a story for this offseason, especially when the Lightning have to gut their entire bottom 6 this offseason. That will be brought up. But, anyway, moving on to the Golden Knights and the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens taking out the Golden Knights in 6 games. A overtime winner for Arturi Lehkonen in Game 6 sends the Canadiens to the Stanley Cup Finals to face the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, everybody, myself included, I will be the first one to tell you. I will own up to it straight away. I was a Canadiens doubter. I said they wouldn't get out of the first round. And you know what? Every time they won another series, I said, well, I don't think they're going to take this one. Well, I don't think they can beat the Jets. Well, I don't think they could beat the Knights. You know what? They keep proving me wrong. And they keep doing it in fairly convincing fashion. It's interesting because I realistically don't think on paper this roster is really anything special at all, honestly. No offense to Mark Bergevin, but I don't really think he put together, and he didn't ice the best team really in the world. And, let's call a spade a spade. This team would not have made the playoffs in a normal year. They would be on the outside looking in. Just points-wise. They just didn't have enough points to get out of the Atlantic or take a wild card away from the Metro. But none of that really matters, honestly, because they're here and they're going to the Stanley Cup Finals. Montreal in this series, especially those last 2 games, they just seem to control the play. And they're having a lot of success in many of the same ways that the Islanders do. Harsh in the neutral zone, turn the neutral zone into a total swamp. And you don't need to make many mistakes against this team for them to make you pay. It takes one. So many times we've seen this. during the playoffs, especially in the Toronto series where, those overtime games, Toronto would turn the puck over once and it would be in the back of the net. One misplay through the neutral zone, one disrupted break-in, one turnover in your own zone, the puck's in the back of the net. These Montreal Canadiens have been like snakes, just waiting in the weeds to jump out at you and, make you pay for that silly, stupid mistake or that mental error. And, man, they are good at it. And they're going to need to be, honestly. Because going up against Tampa Bay Lightning, I don't think it's that harsh to say the Lightning are far and away the best team that the Canadiens will have had to play so far. So, what does this mean for the Vegas Golden Knights going into the offseason? It's interesting because I genuinely think the best thing for this Vegas team to do this offseason is nothing. And that's not to say that the Vegas Golden Knights have the best team in the NHL, but this roster has turned over so many times in the last few seasons, adding big names after big names. You go from adding Max Pacioretty and guys like Mark Stone, and this last offseason you shake up the decor by adding somebody as big as Alex Pietrangelo, and adding a guy like Pietrangelo really changes the entire complexion of the team. Because he eats so many minutes, at 5v5 and on the power play and on the penalty kill, that he changes the complexion of that back end. This isn't a minor bottom six piece you're adding to be a role player. This is somebody you bought in to transform the decor. And I think that this roster just needs a season where something isn't being dramatically changed at every given turn. I mean, between the signings and the coaching change and the goalie controversy, I genuinely think that this roster just needs a season to be together and gel. Because at times during this playoff run, they didn't look very cohesive. There were times when they looked like they were playing different sports, honestly. And, again, not to take anything away from the Montreal Canadiens, but this was a series that was very winnable for the Golden Knights. And it's one that they kind of threw away on mistakes that they made. And that's, again, the Canadiens are very, very good at turning those mistakes into goals, not taking that away from them. They do a fantastic job at making you pay for making a mistake. But Vegas being so out of sync meant that there were so many opportunities for Montreal. If anything this offseason, I genuinely think that Vegas needs to pick one of Fleury or Leonard. If nothing else, then because this switching back and forth between the two of them this series, I think kind of threw the rhythm off a little bit. Leonard comes in, plays a great game, and then the next game Fleury's in, he blows it, and then game 6 you put Leonard back in. You can't do that. I mean, it's just, look at the two teams that are in the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, those two teams, have competent backups for sure. And I think the 1A, 1B system can work. But when it comes to playoff time, you need to have a guy that you're going to run the whole time. You always want that 1B backup for sure, 100%, just on the off chance that something happens. And I think Jake Allen is that kind of player. I think Curtis McElhinney is that kind of goalie, that 1B type goalie that can come in and do what he needs to do. And I think that it's absolutely a necessity. You can't have a liability at the backup position. But there's also something to be said for having a guy that you run with. And Montreal has never strayed away from Price. Tampa Bay has never strayed away from Vasilevsky. It's just kind of jarring when you go from a Game 4 win with one goalie to a Game 5 loss with another goalie to a Game 6 win with another goalie. It's just... I just think that the relationship between... not between Leonard and Fleury, but the relationship between the playing time that these guys are getting and the team is just not the best. And I think it's really in the Vegas Golden Knights' best interest at this point to have that 1B type guy, but have a guy that come playoff time. All right, we're running with him. It's going to be Robin Leonard through and through, or it's going to be Fleury through and through. There was absolutely no question in anyone's mind come playoff time who's starting in net for either the Canadiens or the Lightning. So, maybe pick one of those guys, get a 1B type backup. Hell, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could ask Detroit about Thomas Greiss. You reunite Leonard and Greiss. I mean, they worked fantastically together on the island. They won a Jennings Trophy together, so I think that would be a great punch in net for the Vegas Golden Knights, Robin Leonard and Thomas Greiss. And you move on from Fleury, you save a little bit of money, and I just think that this team needs to just gel. Just go into next season knowing what you have to do. You can make an argument that they might need a little bit more scoring punch, like an actual elite scorer. I think the closest thing they have to an elite, pure offensive scorer is Max Pacioretty. You can make an argument that was something that hurt them in the series, the lack of ability to put the puck in the net. And I would say that that's pretty fair. I just don't think that this team needs another shakeup in a big name coming in and taking a roster spot and changing the way the team plays. And I just honestly think that building that team chemistry is something that's important. Because, I mean, look at the Canadiens. I mean, the chemistry that Suzuki and Caulfield have is unbelievable. And the chemistry that this team had, has had really since the playoffs started. And I mean, realistically speaking, how the hell did the Canadiens get to the finals? Well, I'll tell you, Carey Price played so well for so long that this team started to believe it. This team started to believe in themselves and their ability to make that run. And when they started playing confident, it was night and day. It was two different teams, honestly. I mean, this team from the regular season to the playoffs has been entirely different. The roster construction is a team that's built for the playoffs, realistically speaking. They're very much like the Islanders North in that regard. But, you just saw it. The team was like, oh, Carey can stop 40 shots a night. Well, we can afford to take a little bit more of a chance, and we need to take a little bit more of a chance in order to generate that offense that we need to win games. And eventually they just started believing it. They were buying it. Like, oh, yeah, no, this is the way we're going to win. We're going to win this series, boys. This is how we're going to play. And they took it one game at a time against the Leafs, and they dominated the Jets. And they took it one game at a time against the Knights. And they absolutely deserve to be where they're at. I'm not taking that away from the Habs. I mean, I sincerely, honestly, if you had to ask my opinion, who I would want to win this series between the Lightning and the Canadiens, I want the Canadiens to win because they're a team. And even more than that, I mean, I just think Carey Price deserves to win a cup. I mean, the guy, like, my God, does he deserve it? He has been just, like, otherworldly for so long in his career that I'm so glad he's finally getting this chance. So, what does this mean for Vegas? I just think this means that they need to let things gel a little bit. Pick somebody to run with in net, get them a 1B type backup, and excuse me, get them a 1B type backup. Maybe get yourself a scorer, but don't get somebody that's going to change the whole roster complexion. And, just let it ride. Just see where this roster can take you. And for the Habs and the Lightning, I mean, what do I anticipate from this series? I think this is going to be very reminiscent of the Lightning Islanders series. It's going to be the Habs trying to shut down the forward line deep Tampa Bay Lightning. It's going to take some great goaltending from Carey Price, but I mean, he's proven that he can do it this entire playoffs. What do the Lightning need to do to win? I think the Lightning need to do what they did in Game 5 against the Islanders and find a way to really exploit the minimal weaknesses that the Canadiens have in neutral zone, and maybe take advantage of the fact that the Canadiens forwards are a little bit smaller, something that they didn't have that advantage against the Islanders. The Islanders have a pretty big forward core. Take advantage of those small Canadiens forwards. Force them to carry the puck in because they probably won't be able to beat your defensemen. I mean, the Lightning defense are huge. They're like Vikings, basically. Force the Canadiens forwards to try to carry the puck in because, that dump in is probably not going to be a winning proposition most of the time with the smaller end of the Canadiens forward. So if the Lightning can control the neutral zone, don't make a whole lot of mistakes, don't commit too many turnovers, and really force the Canadiens to try to overcome that size disadvantage, I think the Lightning will have a lot of success. How will the Canadiens win this series? Stay patient. I mean, the Lightning are not infallible. The Islanders prove that. They do make mistakes. And one of the ways that the Canadiens are going to have to score goals is you've got to get in the face of Vasilevsky. I genuinely think that's one of the things that really, really hurt the Islanders in this series is not having Anders Lee. Because you're not beating Vasilevsky clean basically at all. I mean, honestly. It's very, very difficult to do so. And a guy like Anders Lee always being in the grill of Vasilevsky would have generated more offense from the points, I think, for the Islanders. Having that body in front for the screen, for the tip, just to cause chaos. The Islanders really didn't get to Vasilevsky in terms of setting up a screen. So I think that's one of the things that hurt the Islanders, and the Canadiens can take notes from that. Get Corey Perry to the front of the net. Just stick his goofy face in front of the net. Get Brendan Gallagher to that front of the net. It's going to be hard to do against the Lightning defense because the Lightning defense are big boys. But you got to get bodies to the front. You've got to cause chaos for Vasilevsky, and you got to generate from the points because I think we're going to see the Canadiens forwards kind of struggle to generate that down low offense just based on the fact of the size. But if they can get that puck back to the point, you let guys like Shea Weber just start ripping clap bombs on net. You get guys like Corey Perry just in Vasilevsky's grill constantly. You get Brendan Gallagher causing disturbances in front of the net like we know he does. You can be successful that way. If I had to make a prediction, it's hard to say. I've been doubting the Canadiens this whole time, and I don't want to keep doubting the Canadiens, but it's been working for them. So Canadiens fans, you might want me to doubt you because every time I've doubted you, you've won. So my heart says Habs win this series. My hockey guess would have to be the Lightning will win this series, though. I'm going to say Lightning in 6 games over the Canadiens. My heart, though, I really do want the Habs to win. So that's going to do it for this episode. The next episode we're going to be doing is Tuesday night. We're going to have Steve and Tim hopefully with me, and we'll be doing a live reaction to the NHL awards, and I will finally get to pick their brains on the signing of Gerard Gallant from the New York Rangers. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys again next time.